Everyone's heard this story. One family created Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but the truth starts with 1800s Japan, takes a detour through traveling prize fighters, and ends with class wars on the beaches of Rio. I'm Yusuf with XMartial, and in this video, you'll see how BJJ really evolved, and stick around because the story goes way deeper than the Gracies. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's story starts in Japan. Jiu-Jitsu was the samurai's unarmed combat system. Joint locks, throws, strangles when fights collapsed into grappling range. But by the late 1800s, the samurai class had disappeared, and with them, Jiu-Jitsu's status. In 1882, Jigoro Kano reshaped Jiu-Jitsu into Kodokan Judo. He stripped the recklessness, turned it into a system of character and efficiency. But early Judo wasn't just throws. The Kosen schools were obsessed with groundwork, foreshadowing what would later become BJJ. Think of it like this. Judo is the iPhone, and BJJ, the jailbroken iPhone. Same core, just hacked to do things the original never intended. By the 1900s, the world was crazy for Jiu-Jitsu. Books sold by thousands. In the US, Judo and Jiu-Jitsu were interchangeable. President Theodore Roosevelt even trained with Yamashita Yoshitsugu, calling it the most valuable sport he had ever practiced. Jiu-Jitsu was a global hype train. In 1906, Japanese fighters brought jiu-jitsu exhibitions to Brazil, defeating local challengers. But in 1909, capoeirista Ciriaco da Silva shocked crowds by knocking out Navy instructor Fadda in Rio, proof that jiu-jitsu wasn't invincible and that Brazil's fighting culture was ready to test it. Still, figures like Jao Omori, Soshihiro Satake, and Takeo Yano kept teaching Kodokan Judo in Sao Paulo and Rio, laying the groundwork for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Then came Mitsuyo Maeda, a seasoned Kodokan judoka and prize fighter. Maeda fought and taught worldwide before arriving in Brazil in 1914. He wasn't inventing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he was promoting Kodokan Judo, but outside Japan he called it Jiu-Jitsu because it sounded older, rougher, deadlier than Judo. And that branding choice is why you say you roll in BJJ today, not Brazilian Judo. In Belém, through promoter Gastown Gracie, Maeda met Carlos Gracie, who studied under him. Carlos then taught his brothers, especially a frail young man named Helio. Helio couldn't rely on strength. He leaned on timing, leverage, and the guard. He didn't invent the guard, Judo already had it, but he weaponized it. From his back, he developed arm locks, chokes, and triangles that let smaller fighters beat larger ones. That's the DNA of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Pause. Real question. If Maeda had never come to Brazil, would BJJ even exist? Or would we all just be doing Olympic judo? Drop your wildest theory below. Funniest one gets pinned. From the 1930s to the 50s, Brazil had Vale Tudo, anything goes fights. Boxers, wrestlers, capoeiristas versus the Gracies. These brutal matches made BJJ battle-tested. During Getúlio Vargas' nationalist regime, the Gracies became heroes, symbols of a strong Brazil. But their dominance wasn't just skill, it was brilliant marketing. They controlled the press, they picked the fights, and they turned every family dinner argument into a martial art. But not all roads led through the Gracies. Luis França, trained by Japanese masters, even fought Carlos Gracie to a draw in 1938. França later mentored Oswaldo Fadda, who opened schools for Brazil's poor and specialized in footlocks, a technique the Gracies dismissed as cheap. In 1955, Fadda's team beat the Gracies using those same footlocks. It was a martial arts uprising, proof BJJ wasn't owned by one family. Meanwhile, Euclides Tatu Hatem created Luta Livre, a no-gi style rooted in catch wrestling. By the 1970s to 80s, BJJ and Luta Livre weren't just rivals, they were cultural opposites. Gi versus no gi, elite versus working class, rich kids in gis versus poor kids from the favelas. The rivalry turned violent. The infamous Hickson Gracie versus Hugo Duarte beach fight. ended in chaos, fueling a feud that shaped both arts. By the 1950s and 60s, tournaments like the Campeonato Carioca formalized BJJ as a sport. In 1994, the CBJJ was founded to organize the sport in Brazil. And about a decade later, the IBJJF expanded those rules worldwide, standardizing the modern point system. Judo narrowed into Olympic throws, while BJJ doubled down on guard play and submissions. Same roots, totally different destinies. In the 1970s, Gracie brought BJJ to California, teaching out of his garage. In 1993, the first UFC was born. Gracie choked out bigger opponents on live TV, and the world realized if you didn't know the ground game, you didn't stand a chance. By the late 1990s, no-gi grappling exploded with events like ADCC. Techniques adapted fast, leg locks, wrestling scrambles, submission-only rules. This no-gi revolution took BJJ beyond tradition, shaping the MMA ground game and fueling today's submission grappling scene. And if you're rolling no-gi, forget sweaty t-shirts. That's why XMartial makes rash guards and shorts built for grip, comfort, and chaos. Links below. So here's the truth. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu wasn't invented by one family. It was born from Japanese Judo, reshaped in Brazil through fighters like Maeda, França, Fadda, and rivals like Luta Livre. The Gracies made it famous, but the art is a collective story of adaptation, culture, and survival. Whether you laughed, learned, or even got offended, drop a like. I'll take it all. Subscribe to catch more, and since you made it this far, the next video is waiting for you.